Good afternoon and welcome to Wytham Woods, where the Embassy of Japan, the Oxford Research Centre in the Humanities and the Oxford University Kilns, the director of which is Dr. Robin Wilson. Hello, Dr. Robin, how are you?
Good morning, how are you?
I'm very well, thanks. A bit better now. Who knows what we're going to get when we open this kiln, because that's why we're here.
Yeah.
We have been spending the last week firing a Japanese Anagama kiln for some pots to go into an exhibition at the Embassy of Japan as part of the Oxford Research Centre in the Humanities Japan season. We'll be taking questions throughout. It's a phenomenally interesting process. Robin will have lots to say about that later, and we'll be speaking to people from the project as well. So please do get your questions in both the Torch YouTube channel and the Embassy YouTube channel, and we'll get to those as we go along. But without further ado, I think it's time to open this kiln. So let's see what we get, shall we?
Yeah, we've got a team over there. We've been holding them back from opening the kiln for the last time.
It's been the kids on Christmas, hasn't it?
They are. It's a bit like Christmas. They're desperate to get into the kiln and see what we've actually done. So we ought to move over there. I can hear them.
They're already scraping. Right, we'll go over there. So let's go over there and we'll see you in a mo. Let's get this thing open.
Well, with that hill,
first reveal.
Oh, tension.
yeah.
You can see some little guys in there. Peters. Oh,
I haven't seen it yet. What's it like?
Peters looks nice.
I'm good, thank you.
Oh, Josie, don't hog it. What's he like?
Oh, yes, that's all right. I think this is going to be okay. Yeah.
Get in there and just get some of this. Maybe you put the button on.
Okay, Ali, do you want to go for it? Yeah. We'll start taking that. Brilliant. And then as soon as you've got the door out, we can all have a look, possibly.
Yeah.
What is that? Raising me? No, that's it.
It's a nice shine on the front.
I think Peter's pot looks like it's going to come out really nice.
Yeah.
It looks, well, we hope so. It looks like it.
Hi, John.
So cool. No. He's giving it the best chance.
Well,
I guess he's taking the full whack of it, isn't it? Yeah, stuff landing on it, heat, you name it. Yeah, yeah, so if it works, it really works. Oh, yeah.
You want to get something to tap them? You got them. Just give them a slight tap.
No, just checking.
That's it. They'll probably all need it actually. They're all quite sealed together. No, you have to, I think you have to tap them all.
Egyptian tombs.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
They're looking good from here. More tension than normally. Are you dressed well enough to get into this kiln? You haven't worn your stuffy boiler suit. You're going to ruin yet another wonderful set of clothes.
So now all the volunteers who have been on site to help with the firing are getting their
We'll
first
just take
look at
some
the results.
pictures of the-
We didn't actually know if we were going to get a successful firing or not, so this is all very exciting for everyone. Once we've got it open, we'll show you some clips from how the firing went. We'll talk a little bit about the firing process itself, and then we'll collect some of the pots that have turned out really well, and we'll talk a bit about how they've worked, if they've worked, and we'll also be talking to people who took part in the project and the outreach arms, so they can let us know a little bit about how they approached making work to go in this very special kind of Japanese wood-fired kiln, the Anagama.
That looks all right to me. It's hard to tell. I mean, this dusty thing is...
Oh yes, this is the one that got scorched with the surface of it.
Being here and stoking it.
The golden goddess has done it. I swear we put her on the left-hand side. How is
We
she
moved it like 10 times.
Did you? Okay, she didn't move herself.
No, she didn't. I moved her at the very last moment because we had the pot on
Exactly,
that
so
side.
your connection to the project, how you found them taking part in the firing,
did not
and
move
then
during the firing.
your outreach, you know, your arm, what you were trying to achieve with that, and then some of the work, show some of the work. I think that's like a nice 3 stages of story. Connection, what you're doing. Yeah. Make sure you draw it. Draw that clearing, so then you can do it in your own words.
We ought to take some pictures of it.
I thought that
As
might
we get
I suddenly realised when I was introducing it, I don't really know.
Yeah, can we get a...
It looks great, doesn't it?
You know what he like? He like Christmas.
The great survivor. That is so nice.
No, in the chimney. You see a nice big pot on the left.
Maybe take a piece out and then do the... We could take this first tonight and then we can do the... and then we do the... Yeah, should we take a picture of that first and then
Get a shot from you in the mouth. Can we just get one shot before anything gets moved?
Yeah, do.
Just for the video.
Yeah, no,
So I can
come-
pan up so we can see the kind of the grand reveal,
Yeah.
so to speak.
Is that where we drop the big pot?
Yeah, no dropping the big
Joseph
pot.
and I can drop a pot.
Sure
on
you
film
can.
like anyone's
Well, we
business.
saw
Again,
already, you know, we've already
that
got the
we were just warming up. That was a small one. We can bounce almost all of
You're
it.
quite lucky that the road straight.
Right.
The thing about it, when you open it, it always looks
Yeah, need to
dusty and grey, and you think, oh no, what have we done? And then when you take them out, they all suddenly
Well, I don't think it
come
looks like that at all. I think that it's very like Peter's spot is going to look so sick. Cool, thank you, Kate. Right, let's get it out.
Should we pop it down on the front? Where do you want it?
Lewis might be wanting more. I'm not entirely sure. We'll get ready to go for those
And the Wadding straight on.
Oh, man. Oh,
wow.
It's done some stuff, hasn't it?
that is a pot.
That is a pot.
Look at how much it's shrunk as well.
It's
It's tiny.
Yeah, it's
That's
true.
gone down so
It's
much.
amazing.
Flashing on it, hasn't it?
Right.
That's the thing.
Get a couple of them out and then I'll go to the
Yeah.
VTs and you'll have
Let's
about
pop
8
those out.
minutes.
And it's quite crusty because it's sat in the bottom of the ash pile as well, so it's got all the ashing at the bottom. Yeah, should we put it somewhere where it's
Yeah.
stable, and then we can.
Is that stable? This one here.
And all the waddings come clean off it. Your wadding was
Careful.
good, Joseph.
That is amazing.
That is amazing. It's Peter Sparry.
That's a Peter Sparry. He'll be pleased with that.
He'll be dead pleased with that.
So what's this wadding on the side? Was there something next to it, or was it going to?
That was so we lent it against the kiln because I've had pots stick to the kiln before, and I didn't want it to have to be ground off the kiln. So knowing that there was going to be quite a lot of ash, and we've done this further back. We've wadded some of the pots onto the side of the kiln. That's really good. Well done, Josie. Well done, everybody.
Yeah,
Well done. That's brilliant. That's a good start. Let's keep on crusty, but like that. That wadding on the side was
that is just
a good idea.
That is such a cool pot.
You happy with
You
that?
know what? Just put the rest of them in the bin.
No, there's more to come.
There's more to come.
That's just the first one. The stuff out of the fire pit's usually not the best. Honestly.
Considering it's a white,
Yeah, yeah.
which is not necessarily the most.
It's not necessarily the best. Well, exactly.
So nice.
We don't know what he put on it, do you?
Do you know what clay it is?
What did they get?
It did. It did have a reactive slip.
He said it had a flashing strip on it. And
Do you
it
know
had a
what
glaze
clay it
inside, and
was?
the glaze has gone really nicely inside as well. Look inside.
Oh wow, yeah.
It's a lovely
Robert,
thing.
Joseph, you don't know which clay it is.
He has. We've got it all documented.
He is not messing around.
It's a shame that slips.
Yeah, it is really old.
That's bang.
Yeah.
That wadding.
The wadding on the side. I told you the wadding on the side would be good. I'm hoping that
Yeah,
yeah. I think wadding things onto the.
Couldn't you, next time maybe you could put the wadding in a shell and attach it?
Next time we can tumble stack it. We tumble stack the whole kiln. That's right.
Well, if the wadding's that good, yeah.
That is just.
Why not?
And the wadding just dropped off.
Yeah,
It was
that's
lovely.
very good.
It's a different. There's no purity of the ash. They find the blood, pure of the ash.
And then we'll make a start. So who's going to start unloading it? Sharon. Go on,
Shall I come over? Yeah? Yes, no?
Can I move the shelf?
Yeah. You instruct them. You instruct them.
So that first pot we saw coming out was by an artist called Peter Sparry, and now will be featured in the exhibition later this year. You'll see as we go to shots from the unloading itself, lots of different people. There was a huge amount of people involved in the firing process. I was one of them from the embassy, and then there was also another 16 people from community organisations, lecturers at universities, potters, most of us first-timers learning how to fire this kiln, all collaboratively, and all of them put work into the kiln itself as well. So they'll have lots of fascinating things to tell us about how they got involved in the project, about how they approached the project and how they found the firing. So we'll come to that a bit later. Just whilst they get a few of the pots out of the kiln, we're going to talk about the process. So we'll go back to where it all began on Monday of last week. So here you can see all the pots pre-laid out on shelves as the loading was being planned. The reason this is done is because we had such a huge amount of pots from so many different people that we ended up with quite a random selection in some ways. Things weren't exactly the same height, things weren't the same shape, so it made the loading of the kiln very difficult. When you load a kiln of this kind, you need to think about the flow of the fire. You need to use pots to direct it. You need to be able to angle it. You need to be able to predict where the ash is going to go. So all of these things were in the minds of the potters who were here as we were planning how the shelves will look. You can see there, that's Joseph, who co-organised the firing, handling Peter Sparry's pot, which we just saw come out of the kiln. This piece is by a French artist, Claude Assange, who is a wood firer and a true expert. And these two tall pieces by Harriet Coleridge, who is another artist based in France and a wood firer who also was on the firing team. Some pieces here by Lisa Hammond, and just in front of those you saw some work made by one of the outreach activities. So what we had going on in this kiln was work from fine artists, work from students. Speaking of fine artists, this is Amanda Chambers, who also produced a work. So in this one firing, we had work from fine artists, we had work from school students, we had work from community groups, we had work from up-and-coming potters, established potters. It was a really egalitarian firing. All of these things took place in the Anagama. It doesn't matter who or what has produced the pots. It was all about the levelling playing field of the Anagama. We also had artists producing things in a variety of clays, but nothing was glazed. So what we're going to see as more pots come out, we'll see just how those clays have responded to being fired in wood. We'll also see how the position in the kiln and how the loading took place affected the end results. So let's take a look now at the next stage of the process. So this part of the process is called wadding, and you can see a few of us there, and actually the cultural attaché from the Embassy of Japan, Kaoru Saiki, also got involved. And essentially we're rolling a clay compound into balls and into cones, which we then stuck to the pieces, which is about to be demonstrated by Joseph. What this essentially does is, because there is so much ash in the kiln, you can end up, where the ash melts, it will create a sort of seal, and it will glue to anything it's touching, whether that's other pots, or whether that is kiln shelves, or even the side of the kiln itself. So any part of the pot that is coming into contact with anything else needs to be wadded. For this firing, we didn't wad that many pots together, but you'll see an example in a moment of 2 pots being wadded together, and that is done to create a decorative effect. So the part that has been wadded to the other pot is going to be protected from the flame and protected from the ash, and therefore will provide quite a strong contrast to the clay otherwise. So here you can see, I believe it's Joseph again, just sizing up if this small unomi can fit on top of this or not. So where the rim connects to the shoulder of that vase, you'll essentially have a halo of strong contrast with the rest of the shoulder, which will have hopefully gathered a lot of ash if the firing has gone well. So you can see there again, we're actually just using that's PVA glue, if you're wondering, which all burns off in the kiln. At this stage, those are the kiln props that separate the kiln shelves. And what we're doing here is just making sure that once we've wadded the pots, are they actually going to fit on the shelf that we're intending them to do? So you can see it's being raised slightly. And that is essentially done to make sure that once everything is wadded together, how and if it will actually fit. And we had to take out pots several times where things didn't quite work or didn't quite fit, and things actually went inside the chimney flute as well. This process, we haven't captured everything to show you today. The reason for that is because we're going to have an exhibition at the Embassy of Japan at the end of this year, running through until February time. And as part of that, there has actually been a film produced where you'll get to learn much more about the process. Really, what we're trying to capture today is the excitement of actually opening the kiln. And we also want to take questions from you guys at home. So anyone watching, please do put your questions into YouTube, and we'll get to them once we've got a few pots out. So we'll actually go and see the next stage of the process at this point. So this is the kiln pre-loading. So you can see it doesn't look like a huge space really. And that's the chimney at the bottom, so you can see it's downdraft. And this is the first few pieces of work being loaded in. At the moment it hasn't got any shelves, and that's Joseph again climbing in to do the first part of the loading. But even in that space we've managed to get around 300 pots in total in, from all the community groups, from the schools, from the outreach. The Oxford Research Centre and the Humanities did some outreach with local schools in Oxford. The Embassy of Japan did some outreach with local potters and some community groups in London and brought the pots up. And also Sundragon Pottery did some outreach workshops as well in Birmingham. So there's been a lot of outreach going on, essentially trying to increase accessibility to these kind of kilns, which are phenomenally expensive to fire, but produce fantastic results. So the idea is to kind of create a space and a kiln that is working for potters in this country, to have access to a Japanese firing technique that is, you know, not so easy to access. And so this moon jar has been loaded in into the chimney to essentially trap the flame inside the kiln. If you had the flame running straight out, it would be firing very inefficiently, which you don't really want. You want to try and trap the heat. So there's a few items put in there, but those items are in one of the cooler sections of the kiln. So they get lots of flaming, but they don't get a huge amount of heat, which means they can still be a bit fragile at the end, but they get some decorative effects. At this point, we're just watching a time lapse of us loading the back stack, which, for the same reason as putting the pot in the chimney, is you want it to be a little bit dense back there, because you want to try and trap the flame. So these pots are going sort of 0.5 centimetre apart, and trying to think about where is that flame going to go, not leaving any obvious gaps that the flame can escape from. Loading, reloading, twisting, thinking, arguing with other potters because everyone has a different idea. Not the bad kind of arguing, obviously, the good kind of arguing where it's just people's creative ideas bouncing off each other, and it's all done in a true collaborative spirit. So we'll watch this time lapse. You might be wondering why there's so many bottles going in and lidded things, and that's partly because people will have thought, well, what takes the ash well? And flat surfaces take the ash very well. And here's Joseph essentially using a spirit level to make sure that kiln is straight. These pots are being loaded into a kind of valley, which will separate out the two kiln shelves and allow space for the heat to build. And this is what it looked like once we put in our second stack at the front. And that's one of the kiln goddesses. We had one inside the kiln and one on top of the kiln. So, you know, people's response to this, some people made sculptural work, some people made functional work, some people threw things, some people made pinch pots. I mean, everyone's approach to it was different. So we really have been astonished by how many things we've got. You may have noticed in the video there was 3 small cones. Ceramicists will know what those are for. Other people may not. They're pyrometric cones, which are a ceramic material that are designed to melt at specific temperatures. And we're not talking temperature like temperature, we're talking heat work. So how much heat work has actually been absorbed by the clay. So one of the ways we have of measuring temperature in the kiln is using pyrometers. And there'll be 2 inside the kiln, which we're reading throughout the firing process. But the real key to knowing have you got the right amount of heat work into your ceramics or not is using those pyrometric cones. So they were placed in various points in the kiln because the kiln doesn't heat up evenly. And we were checking those throughout the firing to see how we were doing. And once all 3 cones, each cone melts at a slightly different temperature. And our goal was to get up to cone 12, the final cone. Once that had bent completely over, we knew we'd achieved our top temperature. Top temperature isn't everything. So we've spent the last few days panicking. You know, is this actually going to turn out well or not? Because the ashing all comes into what decorative effects you're going to get. So just because we achieved temperature, that was the first hurdle, but does that actually mean we're going to get good pots or not? We didn't know. So let's take a wee look at what happened in the firing itself, because that was obviously very exciting. Oh, my apologies, I'm one video ahead of myself. This is us bricking up the kiln. So after we'd finished loading, we put in some bricks and a firebox, which is where we were stoking from. So here you can see the team rebuilding that archway, which we took out just 10 minutes ago. And once it's done, it was sealed up with some clay and mortar mixture, just to try to avoid some heat loss. And you can see there an awful lot of wood that went into the firing. And we'll talk about the environmental aspect of this later because it's very interesting. You might think that because there's so much wood involved, it's not an environmental firing. But this firing was glaze free, and glaze has the materials that go into glaze has an astonishingly high environmental impact, whereby, lots of the materials that are mined for glaze come from open pit mines, often mined by children. And it's one element of ceramics that is slightly ignored or neglected by ceramicists, the environmental impact of glaze making. So although we got through an awful lot of wood to do this firing, the fact that all 300 pieces didn't have any glaze materials on them means that there is actually an environmental argument for wood firing. Wytham Woods itself is also managed forestland, and all the wood we used would have gone to waste otherwise. So this wood, it's sort of served its purpose, it's being reused, it's being reclaimed. Robin will tell you much more about that side of the project, because obviously he's the expert even. He's actually just appearing. I'm wondering, do I grab him? Robin, do you mind just quickly jumping in and telling me about the wood, specifically the wood that we're using here, and the forest, and and then the connection there,
Yeah, of course. So what we've got, the wood that's surrounding us is mostly softwood. It's Western red cedar, which is thuya. It's part of the university's woodland. We're surrounded by 1,000 acres here. It's being managed by the university. We're converting a lot of our pine forest back into deciduous high woodland.
Right.
And we're doing that by taking out some of the pine, which is very convenient because it's very useful for this firing. So.
Yeah. And I remember you saying the pine was originally planted for commercial purposes, and that replaced the
Yeah, we had a
original
forestry
woodland.
department here
Yeah.
in the 30s and 40s, and so it was planted then in stands for what would then be useful. But it's not something we want in the woods now at all. So we're taking it out. We've got a lot of it. And we're replacing it now with oak and beech and ash.
Okay.
And part of that is to create a deciduous mixed forest, a natural forest, for part of the study and for the reasons of just continuing to make the woodlands more natural.
Yes, exactly.
But during that process, the removal, we have the benefit of being able to burn it.
Yes.
Because otherwise it would
happy
be waste
coincidence.
wood. It's a happy
Yeah.
coincidence, which I
Yeah.
noticed when we set up the project, that there was a lot of wood being felled and taken out. And again, the hardwood, because we're burning hardwood here as well. So when we fired the kiln, we had beech and quite a lot of ash. We're taking that out because we're starting to thin our stands. As they grow, as they mature, you take trees out, as you get when you plant radishes. You have to thin them in order for the things that to remain to grow and reach their full potential.
Okay.
So that's where our hardwood comes from the thinning of stands and from the ongoing management of the woods.
Okay.
And then the softwood, which is the majority, is the bulk of what we're burning in the kilns, is stuff that we're actually taking out of the woods and replacing.
Yeah.
And we're surrounding with, this is more for the next firing. And it's good, it's a good use for it. And
it is a fantastic use for it. And we were saying just before you arrived, I was saying, well, look, the environmental cost of burning wood, that there is a question mark there.
Yeah, there is.
But there is also a huge reduction in glaze materials that didn't go into that kiln as a result of using the decoration from the wood.
I don't think this is something you could do anyway. We're not cutting down wood to do this.
Yeah.
Wood is being cut down, and
You're putting it to use.
And we're putting it to use, which is quite different.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say that this is something that I would imagine everyone should be trying to do.
No, of course not.
It's a rarity.
Yeah.
It's a chance rarity, and I think it's something that we're making the kilns fire as efficiently as we possibly can, and because there's an educative programme here, I think we're trying to make sure that what goes into the kilns has meaning and lasts. It's not something that we discard. We're not producing discardable items. We're trying to produce things that make people think, and items that will be durable and remain.
Yeah, definitely. I think just to pick up on one thing,
but there
you
is a
just
question
said,
there.
There is a question there
with the wood,
and is the answer to say, right, get rid of glaze and everyone fire in wood? Definitely not.
No.
You know, this project occupies a unique space in some respects, insofar as it's
there
capitalised on a moment.
There are places in the world where this kind of forest management is producing surplus wood. But I think you need care with what you then fire. You need care with what you need to put in. This isn't just an idle fancy that we'll just put some pots in the kiln. I think you really have to think about it. I think you have to, and that's really what we're doing. We're trying to make people think about where their things come from.
Yeah.
And not to discard their things, and to make things that they want to keep. So, again, this wood hasn't come from anywhere. It's come from here. It hasn't been driven in here.
Yeah.
The pots that we're making are not then being containered across the world or taken.
No.
They're made here. They are here. They're used here. So in some, it would be interesting to study the actual energy usage to produce pots, and then see what their lifetime is. And partly I've been
over and over the lifetime.
Yeah,
you know,
over the
I'm sure
lifetime of the pots, how long will they last?
Yeah.
You really aren't producing things here which are going to be thrown away next year.
I mean, pots are some of the only items we have left of some civilizations. So, you know, these things are
Yeah,
not going anywhere
they'll
fast.
last.
They will.
They'll last,
they will.
which makes it worth burning this wood, perhaps.
I
It's
think
certainly
so.
arguable, and it's certainly a debate that ought to be had.
Yeah,
and one that we
should.
are having. It's not unthought about, certainly.
Right, a monstrous plane is about to come over
There
our
is a
head.
monstrous
so now
plane
that is
about
a
to
good
come over our
time, for us to take a look at the firing process, speaking of burning wood. So let's take a little look at how that went. So here you can see stoking happening in both fireboxes at this point. What temperature do you reckon we were here at this point, Robin?
You've got
There's
both
still
fireboxes
smoke.
open, so I think you're probably about 1150.
Yeah, and we can see some
By
of the
the look of
pots there that's through the chimney at the back.
And
we're
that's
looking
a
down.
heavily reducing flame. You can tell the oxidation reduction state of the kiln by looking at the flame. Although we've got pyrometers and things stuck in the top of it, you actually don't need them to fire it. What I was trying to get look at the records that we're keeping. The pyrometers are interesting. It allows us to make comparable comments about previous firings and so forth. But really, you don't need it. And what I was doing was teaching the team here to fire this kiln without the pyros. You don't need it. You need to listen to the kiln. You need to respond to what it tells you to do.
Yeah.
And there are various stages that we go through, which become quite obvious as you listen to the kiln. And it's quite easy to pick it up once you know that you should be listening for a crackle. You should be listening for that deep body whoosh as the air is brought into the kiln and combusts.
Yeah.
Once your attention has been drawn to the physical sounds and things that are around you, actually these kilns are quite easy to fire.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually very surprised. I remember on the first day when we were still in the loading phases and you were saying all of these things, and I imagined, gosh, how on earth are we going to listen? I'm not a kiln whisperer. How am I going to be able to do this? I thought that came with years and years. But they make it quite obvious, especially the draw. You could really hear when you were getting a good amount of oxygen in there. Yeah.
The visible appearance of the pots changes as you go through the temperature ranges, so you can start to see the doneness of the pots.
Yeah.
There are pyrometric cones in there, and they help.
Yeah.
But you don't really need that. You can see the doneness of it. You can see the build-up of the ash.
Yeah.
You can start to, and we do things like drawing out the rings.
Yes.
Do you remember?
Yeah.
Now, and you can see whether your clay has been done. If it's done on the clay ring that you've drawn out, then it's likely to be done on the pots that you've left in there.
Yeah.
So there are physical tricks as well as having the electronics, which I kind of try and get people to ignore.
Yeah.
To a certain
Well,
extent.
when
It's
these kilns
good.
were first fired, no one had pyrometric cones, no one had
of course not.
pyrometers.
It's really good to. Actually, writing down the numbers is quite good because it keeps a focus. If you're doing, because there was a big team on this occasion, you were doing 4-hour shifts. We sometimes do 8 or 12-hour shifts.
Yeah.
Actually, writing down the numbers, it's quite nice because it keeps your attention going over long periods. I mean, we're firing at 2 or 3 in the morning. I don't know if you've spoken about this, but
Not quite yet. I mean, I've kept it on the rosy side. For now.
this isn't something that you fire just by turning up in the morning and sort of bunging a bit of wood. This is round the clock.
Yeah.
And the kiln that's behind us, this is 8 or 9 days of firing round the clock.
Yeah.
It's like driving down a motorway. You can't take your eyes off it.
No, you can't. You have any lapse of concentration can really cause trouble.
It takes 6 or 7, and with these you can take 6 or 7 hours to make up 5 minutes of inattention.
Yeah. And because there were so many amateurs doing it this time, did you, I'm sure you must have found that the ramps and things were taking ever so slightly longer because there was always that learning period as the teams changed over.
I was surprised at how quickly everybody learned, actually.
That's
it
very
went really well.
complimentary.
No, it went really well.
We'll come back, maybe.
Oh, you might even be allowed to come back.
Yeah,
no, it's really good. It's, as soon as you've had your attention drawn to the various things, you just have to keep your ears and your eyes on those things. And when they start to change, you then have to start to think, do I need to improve what I was doing? Do I need to just switch on a bit better?
Yeah, yeah.
And the fixes, once I told you how you fix the things, actually you do it.
Yeah.
The air's not drawing, what do I do? We start to turn the wood. We start to think, is there a big enough air gap? Is there too much? Do we need to rake a little bit underneath? And as soon as you're doing that, the range of things you can do here isn't great. But being on top of them every moment is nudging this always from the mediocre into the perfect.
Yeah, yeah.
It's quite easy to fire these badly. It really is quite easy. You just put wood in it and you can fire
how's
them
it
badly.
looking actually? Is it looking like an okay firing?
You haven't seen it yet.
I
have
haven't.
you?
I've been here with the camera.
Oh, well, I'm going to tell you.
Oh, jeez.
No, there's some
great pots.
Yeah, no, I'm
fantastic. I mean, I saw Peter. Yeah, that is good.
There's some really good stuff.
Fantastic.
Coming out of there. They've fired it well. Some good stuff has gone in, and some nice stuff has come out. And,
fantastic.
I
think that's a
really
good time
pleased.
then to actually start gathering some pots to show everybody.
Yeah,
There'll be a little bit of a lull where no one will be talking to you just for a moment as we get ready. But we'll talk to some of the collaborators. And this is also a great opportunity to thank Robin and the Oxford University Kilns for not only being here and helping with it, but also their financial support. And also the Oxford Research Centre in the Humanities and their Japan season, who also are financially supporting this. And we at the Embassy were so thrilled to be able to do this with you.
It's been
in
a really
quite
fun...
a tight timeline,
It
if I
was
remember.
quite a tight timeline through no fault of our own. We've had to do this.
Well, that's what we say.
We've had to
That's what
do
we
this
tell the
rather
cameras.
quickly.
Yeah.
And it's gone really well. It's amazing. Everyone's
Yeah.
come together. People produce pots in time.
Yeah.
We've had a greater response than I had thought. I had no idea that this would be so
It's been
popular.
phenomenal, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's been phenomenal. The team has been great. Everyone has turned up, has brought more people. It's been a wonderful thing. And everyone has learned a lot very quickly. And I'm quite confident that that the same team could fire this again.
Well, there you go, and there's no.
And they'll
higher
want to come back,
compliment.
which is a nice compliment.
I know, it's so strange, isn't
And the
it, you know?
catering's been good, the cake has been very good.
The cake has kept everyone going.
But the pots coming out are really good, and we probably ought to go and have a
We
look
ought
at
to go
some
and
of
get
those.
some. So we'll be back very soon with some interesting pots, so don't go away. And if any of that has interested you, do get some questions into the chat
do
on
send
YouTube.
some.
We would like to actually answer your questions rather than Robin and I just kind of rabbiting
Yeah,
on.
I can talk about this forever.
Yeah.
But you could, if you have any questions, once you've seen some pots, it'll be more obvious what you should be asking.
Definitely.
And we can talk you through some of the pots. We can talk you through. We've got some of the makers who can talk you through their pots
and their
and their experience of firing it, because their experience is again quite raw and quite unfiltered, and they'll be able to talk to you about having done it for the first time and what's different to this. They're all potters, but this is quite different for most of the people who are participating. They haven't seen this kind of result before, so it'll be interesting to get their first reactions from these things.
It will. So we'll be back shortly with some pots. Don't go away.
I'm going, run.
This sweaty forehead, I love that.
Yes, I know. Listen, work better than
Hasn't taken any of the action.
Come and talk about this on camera. Come and talk about your practice and talk about this guy. Do you mind if I move it over? Then we'll get ready. I'll get a mic ready.
Tell me.
Yeah, I'll come and get you in a minute. Oh, she's not here, unfortunately. But how's that? Oh,
That's magnificent. That's doing all the stuff it should do.
yeah, look how green that is. It's even crazy.
Yellow, the front, the back. That's doing everything. And this is raw. That's raw.
I hope so.
This is my favorite one.
I like that one.
Until now.
Makes you want to make stuff.
But you could hold an absolutely gorgeous pot. One of the best pots that's come out, and you could go for it. Which thing? This? That? The sponge? This? Oh, I didn't despise that one. I despise the temple of science. Temple of science, right inside. That's perfect.
Almost looks like a rebate or something, you know.
That's
And
doing
her
what?
feldspar looks pretty cool.
That's doing what they should do. Oh, wow. Where's that from?
Whoa, that's some crusty guy.
Rachel, where's that from?
The front row.
Amazing, that is so, looks like it's from the sea.
No, just
Are we on backstack yet?
we're on
Don't
the,
think
no,
so.
we're in front of the side staking channel.
The heart looks pretty wild as well.
Rachel, you are taking. Rachel.
I think that
Rachel, you are doing line for line. Yeah. Super, fantastic. Thank you.
Hopefully that's in
Front
the
to the
shot.
bottom, so yeah, so
This would work quite well with a very thin sheen on it. Just to pull up those.
Oh wow, blue, look at that blue.
I've got a box full of these.
What clay is this one?
I was going to salt fire them, but I haven't bought them. I haven't made the salt kiln yet.
Hello, les pas.
That's the first step, isn't it, really? Still in preparation mode.
second row.
second row on there. So that kind of sits just here.
Cool. Cool, Raph, shall we have a chat?
Yeah.
Crusty.
Yeah.
No, it's
Look at that. Boom.
I think we're going across. Oh, right.
It should be, shouldn't it?
Are we still going across? Yeah, going across. This is the second row now. Second row.
I think we've done right, haven't we? You happy? You think we're firing all right now? And it's doing stuff, isn't it?
I mean, just look at this. Just look at this. The green on the blue.
It's lovely, isn't it? I think we're doing all right.
next to the bottom, I think.
That is. Let's do what these kilns do, or meant to do. Anyway.
Size of relief.
Somewhat. It's a slightly public thing to open it. Quite so.
Size of relief, isn't it? Bit?
Slightly. That looks like
Angel.
an angel, doesn't it?
Yes.
There's some Tokoria as well that he did. Which
Right, here we are. We're back here with Raf, who has had a fantastic piece out of the kiln. Are you happy with it, Raf?
I love it. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
The way the ash built inside the kiln is perfect.
On one side.
Yeah.
Do you want to show it right up to the camera? Let's get it in there so people at home can see. Just up ever so slightly. Look at that. So you can see the yellowing. What other features are you enjoying about this piece, Raf?
I love the way the ash the flame and the ash were building in one of the sizes. And then you have all the other way. The evenness of the ash building in the mask is beautiful. And the connection with the other
side,
piece.
isn't it?
Yeah,
That was
it's
the side
beautiful.
of the kiln, maybe, that little patch.
Yeah, it's very interesting the way this fire has worked, because it's all around inside too. Can you see it?
Yeah. And also, can you notice these cracks there at home? I remember being very worried putting it into the kiln, thinking, oh God, is it going to survive? But you told me it's actually intentional.
Intentional to allow the mass to shrink and pull without causing any damage into the front.
Yeah.
Basically, all the stress, I hold it at the back. I normally do 4 lines to hold them.
Yeah.
And the way the mass go, this particular mass go, it go like this.
Okay.
And it's a reference to the fair, English fair, when you have the gorging competitions.
Okay.
And it's a little bit about how I'm feeling at the moment. I don't know how. I don't
You're kind of capturing it? Like, we've
Yeah.
still got a bit of wadding, obviously, which will come off this part, isn't it?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that'll
This
come off.
is a little bit. That's
Yeah.
not gonna be any problem.
No, that will come off easy.
Gonna make it even more interesting after we
Yeah,
remove
'cause
it.
it'll be the patch, isn't it?
Yeah.
Where it's been protected from the flame and protected from the ash.
Yeah.
But tell me more about masks. Why do masks feature in your
Well,
practice?
for me, when I moved to England 20 years ago, one of the first places that I went to visit was the Pitt Rivers Museum.
Pitt Rivers, yeah.
And the Pitt River was a fantastic place for me, because when I arrived, I don't speak any English. And for me, it wasn't a way to be in connection with culture from all the world, understanding a little bit what it's for about. And the Pitt River was a place full of very quirky and cultural museum.
Yeah.
And what I liked, one of the things I more liked was the collection of masks from all over the cultures. Because I was working, before I moved to England, I was working in performance.
Okay.
And I was working in performance as a way of working ritualistic.
Okay.
And the masks are part of that ritual. Basically, one thing connect me with the other one.
Yeah.
The collection started to encourage me to produce more masks. But in that moment, I wasn't making pottery.
Okay. Not
Pottery
yet.
coming
later.
long later, a few years later, and
Yeah.
then I started to work with masks. And I've been doing a lot of pottery. I've been learning everything about pottery.
Yeah.
And firing was something who fascinated me 10 years ago, and I continue learning. But this particular firing, what I find about this particular was the pace. Everything happened so lovely.
Yeah, yeah.
Like in no hurry, was no real effort in the way we had to deal. It was very lovely the way we can interact with each other. Was really nice the way we work with each other. Was really nice the way everybody worked together. The harmony, maybe the amount of people who were working, made the
pace.
fire.
Although there was intensity, the pace, it didn't feel stressful, did it?
No,
It was,
because
we were covering each other and making sure people were resting.
And everybody was doing the same thing. That's what I more like it. Like sometimes you have one people doing something and then another one doing something, but because all the time was somebody working in the kiln who know exactly
Yes.
what we're doing.
Yes.
We basically were repeating the same thing,
Yeah.
and that give it like the harmonious effect in the firing, but because we don't want improvising anything.
Yeah.
We just were learning how to do it.
Yeah.
And the process of learning for me was beautiful because it was
Yeah, because you
totally
fired before though,
yeah,
right?
you had
know,
done
so
it.
you kind of were familiar with how the kiln works, knew the signs. We're about to get a plane, but hopefully we can carry on talking. A few of those, you think, oh, we're in 1,000 acres of woodland, the most beautiful place on earth. But then it's also, they do love to send them over.
Well, we are in Oxford.
Yeah, that's it. So, we're still in Oxford. It
Yeah.
feels like nature, but we are still in Oxford.
Yes.
About 10 minutes drive, actually. And the woods are open to the public, I believe, for people
Yeah.
to come and have walks and all that sort of stuff. So it's a fantastic place to visit. It's a very, charming place.
It's absolutely gorgeous. The walks around here are amazing. It's a lot of research have been done in this place. Basically, this is why the wood have been keeping so beautiful, because I suppose have been on the very, very well looked after, and the team who working here very good.
Yeah.
People with a lot of experience.
Yeah.
The people who are working, all the rest of the working here is make you feel at home.
Yeah.
It's
we
very
all settled
nice.
in very quickly. I was so surprised,
Yeah.
and everyone's been so friendly and accommodating, and all the staff, been
Yeah.
helpful, and everyone's been there. to
Yeah,
look out
they,
for
they,
us,
they never say if they can do it. They say, yeah, come on.
Yeah,
let's
that's
do it.
It's always a yes,
Yeah.
You very rarely got a no, did you? Everyone
but
was just
it's-
positive attitude. Let's make this work. Let's do this,
And
then look at the results we get because of it. It's
this is
fantastic.
beautiful.
That's a
I'm so
really,
proud,
really
man.
special piece. You should be. That is a really special piece.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for talking us to us, Raf. Let's go crack on, help the guys.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
No worries. Thank you.
It's got a bit of wadding on the bottom. I'm not tapping off. Maybe Jim's a tapper off of wadding. He looks like a tapper off of wadding.
So where are we now?
So this is now the valley. So this was in the valley between the stacks. So we're now moving on to that stack.
It's a nice position, isn't it? Those.
It's good actually. It's worked out really well. This one.
Did you like that?
Look at this. Using that space between the shelves.
I was hoping it was going to create a bit of. Well, we haven't seen the back stack yet, have we?
It's worked really well for those pieces.
That of Claude's has come out really nicely, and it didn't take too much of the firebox either, which is really good.
Robin, do you want to talk to Austin about his pots so people can have a break from listening to me?
Yeah, I can talk to Austin about his pots.
Great.
I might take some.
Hey, good to see you again. I sent an email to Andrew. Did you get it? Okay, you did get it. Cool. Yeah. No, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure I got the right address
Yeah,
and everything.
I'll carry a few little things.
Yeah, it's like a right. Austin, something to do with these, my man. Have you got anything else out yet?
Yeah, Joseph.
Dogs. You always know straight away, like random little bags of people's pockets. They're in a dog Robin, have a quick chat about the hat. Right, so Robin.
Sorry?
We've got a studio and we'll go back to Sunday.
If it's a Lisa Hammond mark, then it's a Lisa Hammond pot.
So talk about Sunday as well.
Yeah. That's
Or
this
if
is my
Becky said she
student.
was happy to talk about
That's a
Sundragon
Lisa
as well.
Hammond.
So
Yeah, no, there's lots of Lisa Hammond
we'll
in.
get her in a minute.
Yeah, it is. There's lots of Lisa Hammond. Yeah. And her students, and their students.
We could just sell one of those to fund the next part of the project. Should we just tell her it broke? Sell it on the black market?
Are we in that kind of are we in that ethical market? Are we? Yeah, nothing came out.
Robin, jump on camera with Austin, have a wee chat about Sundragon, about the pots. You've got a monitor so you can see where the.
Do you want to come and introduce?
No, you guys go into the demo. I think you do quite in and out, and I'll get the next one.
That's also him from my understanding. That big one is magnificent. That was the very first one I think when they opened it, when we were watching online. It was like it was the first thing in the day.
Can you put that one back over the? It's over there. Pardon me, sorry.
And then
Yeah.
after you've interviewed Austin, Melody's got a couple of questions she'll ask that people have been submitting.
Brilliant. Are they the kind of questions I'm likely to be able to answer?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Whose is that?
Don't know who the speaker is, but or she is quite a known potter.
Is that not Peter Sparrow?
Is that Peter Sparrow?
Could be, that little S could be his thing. I think this, yeah, it's one of his smaller
Does it
ones.
hold it? It's absolutely
So
delightful.
light, yeah, yeah. That's Peter Sparrow. That mic is on, this one. So things said around here, when that camera's on, mic is on. So as long as everyone's been, I mean, everyone's saying nice things. We're just so everyone knows. No swearing. No swearing in the vicinity of this microphone. Cool. So we're about to go to another interview.
Some of them come off, some won't.
Yes. Yeah, because I live in the countryside,
Yes, I think it would also much stronger.
I have one I've been washing once a week.
This has come out very cool. It really looks like coral. Look at that.
Yeah, strange.
It's amazing.
That is so cool.
Wash them very heavy.
It's really trapped the ash. It does. It looks like a living object. Yeah. That's so Oh yeah. I wonder whose that is actually. That's very nice. That patch of black really makes it actually.
And then you've got the raw clay. It's just...
Oh, it had some slumping. This guy is.
So, we're having a look at some of the pots. Austin here is from Sundragon, which is a community pottery in Birmingham.
Right.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about? I mean, these are exciting. We've just got these out, so it's very hard not to talk about the pots. Do you want to tell us about the pots? What have you got out?
It's a raku clay, and it's just been chamfered with a flat piece of wood, and then just tidied up a little bit with a surfhorn blade, so you get it a bit sharper. Just so it picks up some ash just on the edges of things to show the contrast.
And show the front, and then the back. See, the joy of these kilns is that what comes out of them is distinctly not uniform. It's got a unidirectional blast. So the flame is blasting through the kiln, and it hits the front side of the pot, wraps around, and then the rear side gets much less ashing. This is a really lovely thing here. I don't know if you can see this. There we go. See, it's got a front. This front has been blasted. It's covered with ash. It's running. This is the ash from the fuel that we fired the kilns with. So this is an unglazed pot, which has been auto-glazed as an incidental effect of the firing process. It's a beautiful incidental effect. But this yellow and the green, this is the wood we used to fire it with. This is the ash and the beech and the pine that we've used it. And on the back, if you turn it over, you see that's where the flame is wrapped around. So you get a distinct topography of these pots. They're not meant to be uniform all over. They're a terrible thing for trying to produce uniform sets of the same thing. This, you could never produce another of these because it depends upon where you loaded it, what it was sat next to, where it was in the kiln. We can never do that again, and that's its real joy. Let me put this one down.
There's another one.
Yeah, have you got another one? Let's have a look at another one.
Slightly different position in the kiln as well. There we go.
Is this another of yours? It looks like yours.
So that's done the same way. Just pressed into those kind of areas there. There we go. So that's the front.
Look at the ash running down here. And if you're part of the joy of these kilns is the serendipity. It's the accidental process of the ash runs. So you get good drips and bad drips. Let's have a look at those again. Hold them up to the camera. See, those are good drips. They're lovely. If you look at them closely, there's a lot of texture in there. You can see the crystal formation in there, and then they run to these beautiful bidoro, the glassy end nodules. And they haven't run off the pot, they've run on one side. So again, it has a front face and a back face. And it's got a lighter face at the back where the flame is wrapped around it. That's lovely, that's really nice. Do you know where that was in the kiln?
Back top.
Back top. So at the moment, when we're opening the kiln, we're about halfway through the opening at the moment. So this was on the front top shelf. So I was expecting this to get a lot of ash. I was expecting it to get blasted, and that's why I put it there. The back top, I didn't know whether the ash was going to get there or not. But when I asked people to come and contribute to this, I said, don't glaze your pots. So nothing really that went in there had a glaze, apart from one or two had lining glazes. So we could fire the kiln really high. So we didn't have to stop. We didn't have to worry about glazes running off the pots or anything like that. And it means that we've been able to get ashing all the way back into the kiln. It looks as if we've got ash right to the very back. And if this was back top,
pretty much right at the back.
That's traditionally the coldest part of this kiln, because it draws the tunnel, the chimney draws from the bottom of the kiln. You tend to get a cold area at the top above it. Part of my concern when I was firing this was to get the flame and the heat in the relatively cold top back. And if that pot's come from it, I didn't see it come out, but that's clearly getting ashing all the way back, which is exactly what I wanted, which makes me very pleased. It's I'm kind of keen to go and see what else is coming out. It's hopefully we'll be able to go over and see what's happening here. The wadding, look, we've still got some wadding in here. Mostly that taps off. So with these type of kilns, you have to.
Yeah.
There you go. Well done.
Very near.
Yeah, you have to wad everything. So every surface that's going to touch every other surface has to be wadded to stop it sticking. You still have problems when you get glaze. You're just about to break that pot in half, aren't you?
It'll be fine.
So everything is wadded to stop it sticking. And it should just tap off at the end. That's got quite a lot of wadding in it, to be honest.
It's a bit huge.
Yeah, it has. Let me have a look at this one again.
That's clear on the bottom. It's only a very little bit left.
Yeah, see the waddings come straight off that. It's lovely. Oh, that's brilliant. Nice. Oh, perfect.
Even an indent.
Yeah, oh, that's really good. No, lovely. So I'm going to go over and get some more pots, and then we can have a look at what else is coming out of the kiln, shall we?
Cool.
Excellent. We will be back. I might take this back in. Goodbye.
Are you feeling delicate? Are you feeling delicate?
Just like school bar?
Yeah.
Oh my god, I know, right? That's amazing.
Sorry, that's
I am very
Why didn't we just use school bar?
That's
I'm good, but
that's Scarborough. But it's a school bar.
what's got with
12.5 kg.
yeah.
Honestly.
Do you need me again?
So what's got with
Okay.
That's all I know. It's a Scarborough. It's red in the bag. It says
Oh, is
Scarborough.
it Earthstone?
Yeah, there you go.
It's the Earthstone.
Earthstone original.
Just the white. It's the white
Yeah.
stone
Nice.
there. Standard.
Let me go and hold it.
Great, so Melody is going, Melody is
Yeah,
going to ask you
Let's
some
see
questions.
which ones are the reduction.
That's the one.
Yeah, Joseph,
Yeah,
I knew.
but-
Joseph, come.
Has Austin still got his mic on? Let's
Not sure.
That's incredible.
Okay, let's pass that.
I wish I'd used buff next time. And bigger, I think is better.
How is these?
Robin and Joseph will be on it.
Yeah.
Joseph grabs on his pot. Yeah, I think she's there with you.
On the same road. Behind me, so.
No, she went for a sort of firing and then didn't really get hot enough.
Yeah.
So an awful lot.
That's so cool. It's an exhibition.
That is fab.
Can I take a picture of you and your big pot?
Well, that one is.
Great smile. Ali, can I help? Are you alright? You look like a photo face. Yeah, do you want to swap it? No, make sure it's forward. You know what you're doing.
It's crank and bob.
Next, right down.
You okay there?
Yes.
Can I take
Right. Next row, right. Middle of this row.
That you stretch. And then the orange.
Yeah, it's more that when you compress it sometimes.
Oh, so I've been monitoring everyone's questions. Thank you so much for interacting and asking. And now I have Robin and Joseph here to answer some questions that we've been having in. So a really great question from Sarah Howard is, congratulations team on a successful firing. I'm curious to know if you used a different type of wood for the firing, and would it change the finish of the ceramic in terms of colour or glossiness?
Yes.
Would you like to explain a bit further?
Yeah. So I was talking earlier about the woods we're firing with. We're firing with Western red cedar, which is the pine. That gives us the early spike in temperature.
Yeah.
That's the softwood.
Okay.
And as the kiln gets hotter and hotter, we move on. We start to switch in a greater proportion of hardwood, which is ash. And Joseph knows a lot about this because he studies ash glazes. But it's in essence the minerals that are taken up by the tree come out in the combustion. So when you look at red pine, which the Japanese in Bizen would be using to burn these kind of kilns, their glaze, this glaze is a slightly different colour on their pots to ours. So yeah, you can see what's happening here. We've got these lovely mustard yellows. You see slightly different colours in the Japanese pots. And that's because this is the fuel wood.
They also have a lot of chestnut they burn with, don't they, in Japan?
Okay.
So chestnut produces a particular type of finish on the pot.
Yeah, so the green, so particularly, it doesn't affect so much the flame painting of the base of the pot, but it does affect the colour of the ash that's building up particularly on the pots at the front. So the greens and the yellows, that just reflects entirely what we're burning.
Okay, and so for example, you said before we were using a lot of red cedar.
Yeah.
So in terms of colour, what would that end up being?
That gives you this lovely mustardy yellow.
Okay, so that kind of
the mustardy yellow
like red cedar.
and the
comes
greens.
from the
cedar.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so sort of following on from the questions about ash glazes, could you use the ash to make glazes?
Yes.
From the firing, so I've been told that it gets calcined.
Okay.
So once you've used it at such high temperatures, it becomes calcified, so you can't really use it. But
although people do.
People do.
So
it's very.
We're not really making up ash glazes. This is an auto glaze.
Yeah.
All of this stuff went in unglazed. So anything that you think is a glaze is in fact a side effect of just the firing process on raw clay. And that's what firing wood in these anagamas is about. You're trying unlike it being just a hot box. These kilns aren't just heating up. They're heating up and then pushing ash and flame through the pots. And that's really creating the effects that you're seeing, rather than the potter creating them with a glaze and design. This is the serendipity of the process, and we're loading it
with that in mind.
To try and create the painting itself.
And you can see you have two sides. You have two sides of the pot as well. One that faces into the firebox, which will be this side, where it's heavily ash, and then you have this side which is shielded. The ash builds up and then it starts to run when it gets to a really hot temperature and create a natural glaze matrix. You see many sides to it.
And then this glaze is just from the ash?
Purely produced from the fly ash that lands on the pot, accumulates over time.
This isn't a glaze. This brown isn't glazing. This is just the effect of the flame passing across the bare body of the clay.
Okay. That's lovely, thank you.
And so you're getting oxidation. You're getting oxidation reduction effect.
Yeah.
Let me try and.
Yeah, I think that's
so
good.
That you can see
it's
that.
Like, so for example, like that streak, was that also from the type of wood that we were burning?
Yeah. So this is the ash that's landing upon it. As you get molten fly ash coming off the fuel fire that we're firing the kiln with, it adheres to all of the cooling surfaces, which means the inside of the kiln, all the pots, all of the surfaces get this build up, and it does what you'd expect. When it reaches a certain level, it starts to run, So you get these beautiful runs coming down, and a lot of the pots I've seen coming out here, we're starting to get runs and lovely running ash. Look at this. This is a beautiful thing.
That's great. And then we have, from Ethan Powell, if you could change one thing about this firing, what would it be? That's a really good question.
It's always like, we'd always want to say we'd soak it longer at top temperature.
What do you mean soak it
So
longer?
when we get it to top temperature, and we produced all this fly ash in the atmosphere and it lands on the pots, the fly ash is still pretty dry when a new fly ash that lands on the pots. And when you soak it, you have it at top temperature and it stays at that top temperature for a period of time. So it gives enough time for the new ash to actually start to melt into the actual glaze that's being produced. So we soaked it, but there's always this tendency to want to soak it just for that bit longer. So
we could have done another hour or two, but I don't think we needed to.
You don't get certain. But the results are great.
The results so far from what I've seen are just really
But you would have to soak it for, say, you wouldn't just soak it for another hour longer, you would probably soak it for 4 hours longer so you can really gauge what the actual soak does rather than just
I'm not sure I would have, I'm not sure I've changed very much. We didn't have much lead-in time, so we didn't have a lot of time to prepare people for this or to do any serious educative work. So actually I wouldn't have changed the firing. I think I would have changed the way that because we had a lot of schools involvement with this, I think I would have liked to have built this into more national curriculum type access, so people appreciate a little bit more about what we're doing. It'd be nice to have had time beforehand to actually go out with some of these pots and say, look, we could produce this.
I see what you mean by the firing.
You know, so I think the firing, looking at the actual physical firing, is great, but it's the things that have sat around the firing.
And work around it that took the fire.
I mean, normally we spend a bit more time doing this. On the preparation, so that's all I'd have done. So looking at the firing, I think it's.
All right, great.
I'm really
because the actual firing of the kiln was the easy thing. Wasn't it?
Firing of the kiln is the easy part, to be honest. It's all of it's actually making it count that's difficult, and I think that pre-preparatory process I'd have liked to have had a bit more time.
All right, okay. And then there was one question before. I think I remember, but it's gone now. But there was also a question like, why are the pots cool to the touch, even though we're just taking them out of the kiln right now?
We finished firing on Friday.
Okay,
so
3 o'clock on Wednesday.
Yep.
So it's had 4 days of cooling.
Okay, yeah.
We allow enough time for it to cool down.
It takes as long to cool down as it takes to go up. This small kiln that we've just fired takes 4 days to fire the thing, to get it up to stoneware temperature, to get it up to cone 12. Takes about 3 or 4 days for it to come down. Yesterday it was at 58 degrees on the pyrometers, and we opened up some of the vents to help cool it. It's actually still hot in there, so when we're taking pots out, they're still hot to the touch, and warm, sat in there it's still hot.
But it's still warm. It's a bearable temperature.
You could have unloaded a little earlier. We could have unloaded yesterday, I suppose.
I mean, we have gone in there when it's sitting down in the kiln floor. It's a bit too hot.
Okay, it's still hot.
So the pots at the back are still hot.
Okay, all right. That's just really cool to know. And then we have one last question for now from Kashmira Patel, who I'm sure is asking a question that everybody is thinking of. Can I take part in this project next year? And if you want to get involved, how should we get involved?
You can. Email list. Email me, do. It's honestly, I get hundreds and hundreds of emails asking, can I come and participate? And you actually can. This is part of Oxford University's. It's my research. I'm an anthropologist. I'm studying craft making, but I want people to participate. This is a real kiln. It survives because Joseph's a potter. He's not an anthropologist. He's not an academic. He's not here because I'm paying him to be here. He's here because these kilns...
Learning.
Well, because these kilns do something that you can't do in other ways. So it produces pots that you can sell, that you can exhibit, that you can't easily otherwise make. So come and play.
Beautiful.
Email me a long time in advance. These firings take a while to set up, and a lot of people want to do it. What I really want to do is to set up. What I'm doing is setting up small groups who can fire the little kiln, and when we've got lots of little groups that work, we're going to put them together and we're going to fire this big kiln that's behind us.
All right. And then, so how can people contact you? Or
you can email me, and my email, I think I'll put it on the website.
I think it should be on the website.
It is on the website.
Okay,
but if you look at us, Instagram. At Oxford University Kilns.
Oxford University Kilns.
Works. And if you look up me, Dr. Robin Wilson, you'll find a lot of contacts online. Email me, tell me why you'd like to do it and your background. There's no qualifications to participating other than an enthusiasm, a willingness to live in tents, and it's quite hard work.
And hard work.
Yeah, it's hard work. We move all this wood around. I mean, the analogy I've been using is like volunteering for a steam railway. If you think you're just going to drive the steam train, you're going to be mistaken.
And disappointed.
And disappointed. That's driving the steam train is the really, really good bit, and you have to. And there's a lot more to it than that. There's a lot of moving wood. There's a lot of cooking. There's a lot of looking after each other. I put the teams together here. We had a big team. I wanted the teams to look after each other. When they're firing, I want people putting a cup of tea in your hand, you putting a cup of tea in their hands. We do the bathrooms, we do everything. And so if you want to volunteer, yeah, certainly, but it's distinctly not just sitting in front of a kiln quietly chatting and putting the odd bit of wood in. It's a lot of concentration, you know.
I do.
It's getting up. We fire around the clock. It means being awake at 4 in the morning. It means seeing the dawn. It means being muddy and smoky and smelly. It means
only for 3 days, though.
Yeah, only for 3 days.
This one.
Yeah, this one's a different question. This is going to be, although saying that, it took 5 days to load it, 4 days to fire it, and another. You know, we've been on site for 10 days. So volunteering, it's a question of commitment. It's nice to do some pre-research. If you want to fire, think about what kind of pots go into this. Have a look at Japanese ceramics. Get a feel for unglazed wood-fired ceramics and think, oh, is that something I want to be? Is that something I make? Is that something I want to make? Is that something that fits into my current practice? How will that develop my practice? And then just email me, because it's, you know, we're building up teams all the time. There are more and more people all the time, and it's, I mean, and this isn't going away. This is something we're going to continue to do. And it's something we're going to continue to expand upon. But as I think I was saying earlier, I don't want people to just do this because it seems like I might try it. I kind of like you to think about it and then think, actually, I really want to try that. I really want to benefit from that. I really think that burning all this wood is actually worth doing. And it's worth doing if you learn something, put things in, produce things that are great. And really enjoy it. And I think the teams that have been here, I mean, this firing has been brilliant. It was a team that came from all over the place. And it worked really well, didn't it?
Fantastic team, fantastic firing this time.
Yeah.
And the work that comes out of a kiln that you fire like this is so different from all other work.
There is a really lovely buzz over there. I can hear it over my shoulder.
But yeah, so thank you so much. That's all we have for questions for now, but please keep them coming in.
Yeah, if you've got any more questions, ask and we'll try and answer.
Yeah, and then we'll probably see what's going on over there, and then we'll come back later for more questions.
Brilliant. Thanks, Melody.
Thank you. No worries. Cool. Thank you so much for answering me. Thank you.
Bye for now.
See you later.
Cool. Yeah.
Well done.
It's a nice broken. It's another one that's very pink on the inside.
So that's that clay, is it?
It must be the clay, yeah.
That is lovely.
If they go into water,
Oh, that's it.
nice, isn't it? Yes.
I wish I'd made a cup.
Callum, do you know whose these are?
We actually don't. I've got the record of all the makers' marks, so I'll try and dig it up after, but it must have been someone who did it directly to Robin, I guess.
One of the white and pinkers is gorgeous.
Yeah, I like that.
So light. Looks so big.
This is the last row.
Yeah. Final row.
Back row.
Tongue away.
Left to right or right?
Is that left or right, Rachel?
Left.
Left. Yeah, left at the back. Oh, that's nice. Oh, this was slip cast, that one.
This is behind.
It's so nice.
This is behind that one.
Okay, and that was hiding behind that guy.
So that's behind
This
it.
is gorgeous.
Behind it.
Really nice thing.
Yeah.
Well,
That's your bowl. Oh,
whose is that?
Oh, wow.
Nessa,
Nessa.
that's so nice. Okay, when we get you on, you got to bring that with you. You got to bring that with you to the camera.
This is on the far right,
Yeah.
just slightly at the front of the corner.
Oh, right. So cool.
Yeah.
This is actually the right.
No, front corner, like just before the end.
Okay.
And then this is the back.
So this is which corner?
Far right.
Back far right. Sleep. Why sleep?
Yeah.
I don't know if I feel.
On top of a dark body. That looks pretty
Does
cool.
somebody want to? Is Ref going to come and sort the shelf out?
What do you mean? Like bring it out?
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
I didn't want to risk it.
Oh, brilliant. Right. Has Rua's piece come out yet? Maybe have one of them there. So maybe I'll do it this side.
Back around.
Back right.
There?
Yeah. It doesn't go on to that counter.
Yeah, I think that might be behind inside that one.
How is this back shoulder?
Rachel, have you seen one?
It's just you get chance of where they are, isn't it? Yeah, that's mine. Move up inside that one. Oh, yeah, okay. This is my needle for a carbon trap, you know. Yeah, I think it might, which I thought it just might migrate.
You've got to take shared panels.
Yeah, I don't know, I've never seen that before, because it's supposed to go to 14 minutes.
Oh, is that one of our hostage?
Yeah, but ash side on that, Rachel.
Wow. And they all unloaded, but they're still on the inside.
And that's slight bluey.
Oh, wow.
Oh my God, now it's so cool.
That's one of the cats from the last fire.
That had a funny look.
What do you reckon, Annie?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's got an ear on it. It makes me think of that, like, that, you know, that, like, lab rat that had an ear. No! Let's not go into it.
That's just cooling. That's cooling from the firing.
I think that was, like, down on the front here somewhere, maybe there.
You can peel from
Where's that?
Yeah, that's gorgeous, that one.
You're passing them on. Oh, we need another shelf, just hold on. Do we have a shelf space for the last shelf?
Oh, we might need a no. We might need to go to, yeah, we could go out to
I didn't know we check it now. That one and the last one.
You think it's alright?
Yeah. Great.
The next load. What? You want me to start to do the next one? In a minute we just get in.
No? Had a little bit, you had a little bit.
So I think this one's been here, so it'll be yellow. That was next time after. You got like sweet yellow.
Ooh, look, the string thing, the string theory has come out alright. Like that.
Which one? The text one. I think she actually has asked another question. So, how does the shine develop?
That can go in there.
So I can't answer it. So we'll have to get Robin back, maybe with Sharon. Sorry, there is one more question. So maybe you need to do the intro for Sharon.
Rachel might be able to do it.
Oh, Rachel, do you know how the shine develops?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just go with it. Make something up.
Make
Make something up. Right, I need to know.
Because they've heard quite a lot from me. Oh, you could ask Annie.
Annie's
Annie's
a good one.
Annie's a fab expert. Or
And
Jim,
about
or
the
indeed
how
Harriet.
it developed.
You can ask real experts.
Yeah, experts, yeah.
Otherwise, we'll never need to know until you stand in front of the camera and then we'll ask. Oh, it's come out well.
Front left corner. Front left corner.
It says.
On the shelf that he's going to put down.
Okay, are we going on to that corner? Yeah. There's not a lot of bad stuff here. So yeah.
Next to the front, so we're going left to right. Next first, left to right. Yeah.
Those first.
That we first.
Where is your work now?
Left to right.
You got it.
I was like,
So left to right.
Yeah. Do I want to what? Has Raf just done it? Who hasn't been in to unload? Who hasn't?
I haven't.
Melody, get in and unload. Front shelf. Have you been in, right?
Yeah, I've been in. Where's that come from?
Front left. Come on, Melody, get in.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Front right. Yeah, hold it tight.
There was one. There was and it was like they were all like on the top.
I know.
Well, if you see it, you do one line and then the next line. Starting from the left to the right.
So I'm here with Nessa from Sun Dragon. Hi Nessa, how are you?
Hello, I'm good, thanks, yes.
You're good. And we will be wrapping up at some point, possibly slightly after 2:30, because there's a couple of other things, other people we want to show you, but obviously the recording of this will be on YouTube afterwards. So if you need to go, by all means go, but if you want to get a question in before you do, do submit it. One question actually was from a potter who was asking, has my work come out? Jose Carvalho, Portuguese craft potter. Both of them have come out safely, and the other ones are going to the next firing. This one, interestingly, has some slip collected in Weymouth on it, and it's, you know, it's very, very, very glossy, I would say, you know, compared to some of the things we've seen coming out. So that's some, yeah, you should be happy with those results, I think, Jose, if you've stayed with us this far. But Nessa, what you're holding, I think, is a very special pot, which is yours, isn't it?
I'm super pleased with it. So I don't know if you can see. It's a Ashraf Hannah clay with a porcelain slip on the outside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you've got these lovely pink shades, which I suppose is from the slip. And this was towards the back of the kiln, wasn't it?
It was, I think, like the second or third shelf down, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was
really
like,
gorgeous.
didn't know what I was expecting at all, really, because I've never done anything like this before, and we were all kind of rounded up a little bit last minute. So I just chucked 4 pots in.
Yeah, whatever's to hand. And you, of course, actually took part in the firing process as well. How did you find it?
Yes, it was really, really interesting. I was trying to. I don't think I can think of anything else where you you like have a collective process that creates individual things. I think that's really
quite right.
really special, actually, because if it's collective, often the thing that you make is collective. But without the collectivity, you wouldn't get the individual pieces out. Yeah,
so kind of all of our work has kind of contributed to the fact that your work has come out in the way it's come out. And actually, that's such an interesting angle. I like that. Yeah. Because it was quite hard work. I know you were on some of the really quite late shifts.
Yeah, I did like a 12 o'clock till 5 one.
So this really is, you know, it's a round-the-clock process for quite a few days. Sleeping not that great. But
really exciting to just be part of a sort of all-absorbing task, really. Yeah.
And tell me a little bit about Sun Dragon, you know, how the studio operates and what you guys are doing there, because it's really interesting.
Yeah, so it's a community pottery in Birmingham. I've only really sort of come to it quite recently, and I've also got my own individual studio next door, so I'm a sort of associate of it. And Becky, I think Becky's baby, she made it, I don't know, how many years ago? Maybe 15?
It's about 15, wasn't
like
it? It's
that.
been around for a while.
Yeah, so it's sort of, she wanted sort of a studio which was accessible to everyone. So it's got a sliding scale of membership fees according to what you can pay. And then sort of collective responsibility for all of the jobs like the pugging and the firing
the
and stuff.
unfun jobs, you know, because it's one of those things. When you see this thing, you think, oh, pottery, doesn't that look fun? But there is an awful
There's a lot
of
grind,
yeah, there is a lot of grind.
I mean, Becky does a lot of that work as well. So you know, it's her dedication to allowing people to play and use clay sort of therapeutically almost as well. I think, you know, it's a really healing process to make something, and she's really dedicated a lot of time to having that facility in Birmingham.
No, it's such an interesting project, and so great that you guys are able to be involved. And the fact that we get results like this is just the cherry on the cake.
It's just so beautiful.
Let's get that close to the camera, have one last look at it. Give it a nice close-up on that one.
Oh,
there we go, there we go. It's quite difficult to follow when we're looking at that screen, but that is just,
It's got some really beautiful sort of coral pink colour on the outside.
The pink is the flashing, and then the contrast on the inside with those really earthy yellows is just, that's a really, really special piece. I like it so much.
Yeah, I'm very, very pleased.
Great. Well, thanks so much for talking to us, Nessa.
Welcome.
Thank you. And we will be back very soon with Sharon, and she'll talk a bit about her outreach work. And we also know we've got a question on the Torch YouTube channel which we need to answer. So we're going to get a wood firing expert to come and answer that too. So see you guys very shortly.
Oh, yes, please. Oh, wow. All of the bag in orange, huh?
Jim, is that one of them?
At the back. Bag on the bag bottom, so the back definitely didn't go. Most of the time it was
We did it
lower than the temperature. Yeah. This is the last one in the row. The last one in the row.
Jim, could I just no, this is almost the very last one.
Is this last one? Hang on, I'm working.
Last back row.
Last back row.
Rua, has your piece come out yet?
Starting from the legs.
Did your piece go in?
That's what now I'm wondering.
Numbers in there for the last row. So the first one on the left, the last
It must have
row.
gone in.
The last row.
So I'm going to grab Annie first. Get a mic. There's another one.
This is very precarious.
Well, it's actually more that someone's asked us questions about why.
We move the shelf bit.
Yeah, just wow.
Just put it in there.
Give a second.
Help the man out, Jim.
Yeah, so Sharon and Rua are about to jump on. I think that will be the
Maybe
last.
that's more like that.
You can answer the question. Then I'll come back.
We'll come back on with you.
Okay, you come back on. Okay, at the end we'll go on together then.
The answer is it's a glancing crystallisation. That's what shines. It's just a full crystallisation of the ash.
Glenn's got the next one and then this one after that. And then that.
Oh, I think I saw that.
I think we put yours
I
in.
think I saw that.
I'm sure. When we laid out the thing to start with, I made sure one of yours went in.
Oh, wow. Look at that man.
If you didn't do it, the box is going in again.
This is the back row. This is the
Oh, wow.
Use mine, Rua.
Yeah.
Use this one as yours.
I'm sure it did. I'm sure it did. I made sure that the bills went in.
So we just got to find it. What sort of shape is it?
So we're looking for a brown pot, yeah?
A brown pot, yeah.
So take this side one first. And then
have like
so
3D leaves. Carved in. Pressed on these. Right, let's go on the search. Imprint of these.
John, cheese and pickle?
thank you.
In which case, we'll go into the next one.
You had one like that as well?
It's a cunning plan.
Oh, I know.
Not all of those went in. But I thought
Rua.
what he deliberately gave me definitely went in.
You have one. I have one. Thanks, Rufford. Oh, I see.
Yeah. Lily.
Yeah, I see. Yours is very, very bad.
Stick is stuck.
So this is number the first. Pickle. Yes, that's right.
No, what about there's the Temple of Zion and
All right.
have we got,
Where were the last four rows?
is Austin's last big pot?
No.
Is it that one? Which one is it? That one?
Oh, the one in the throat? No, they're not.
That's yours.
These are what's coming out next.
Okay.
The other one.
Oh God, I'm glad that came out.
Yeah, that came out really well.
That is a totally cool babe.
So this was on the wall of the first.
And you're not allowed to take all your stuff back either. You don't.
No, yeah, 'cause it has to go in the bloody exhibition.
Yeah, okay. You have to make sure that they don't wander off.
That's
You know
it.
what they're
No
like.
taking your pots home.
Yeah.
Not until February. Yeah, until after the exhibition finishes. I mean, you can really desperate for them to go take it home.
These are the ones that are packed along the
But that kind of totally. They do need
If something, yeah, if
cleaning
something
up.
gross you don't want in the exhibition, then do take it. But it would be good for everyone's represented there.
Yeah. That is the kind of point of doing all of this.
Exactly, you know.
I'm
leafy. Right, okay. We might just have to go anyway. So, in that case.
Go on, just go. Just hold the pot.
No, exactly.
After the
This is a tunnel, yeah?
It's never given me a hummus and salad sandwich before. It's cheese and not biscuit.
This is in a tunnel.
Has anything good come over tungsten? I didn't assume it would.
Austin's back into the tunnel.
Robin, you better eat it. She's a pickle. I'm always eating stuff. I spend my life either eating or asleep. Yeah, that comes from
That's a bit, no, it's one more. Yeah. Zion? Made that one.
So what did that have on it?
Porcelain slip. Very nice.
None of my stuff got in. That's in the throat of the kiln.
Where are yours?
And that's the same way.
No, they're good.
You know what, Rome? These are lovely. Yeah, they're gorgeous.
God has been at shape.
John, would you like a
I'm
sandwich?
pleased with that.
Hummus and salad.
Yeah, that's a shame.
Demolishing that. Thank you.
Yeah, he stands on the cake. Wow. He doesn't play with it. He just goes, wow. Oh my god! Slaps him straight off the table and then just sits there looking really pleased with it. Oh, it's very weird. Just takes him against it. More hands in their head.
It's like a paper bag, sort of straight side.
Direct eye contact. This is a really good opportunity to see like some range of making sure that it's different because if they do it when you're not around.
No. And they do it for play, something like that. But he distinctly takes against it, doesn't drag it. He sits there and sits there. Wow.
Okay, so we're back. I'm here with Sharon and Rua. We were on the same firing team together, so well done for surviving. God, do you want to start telling us a little bit about the project, Sharon? Because I know it's super interesting.
Oh yeah. First of all, I'm going to say thank you because I was a part. You made it a really good team, and also thanks to Robin who made it happen, and also Joseph because their dedication. Right. So about the project, through the invitation, I was really pleased because I'm doing my own particular work, practice within the history and the ancestry of making pots and making those links, and then bringing it into my my teaching practice. I think so. Everything's connected. It's not just one thing. So it's all enveloped around quite a few things. It's multi-layered or multifaceted. So anyway, so this particular fit one is an Adinkra pot, Ghanaian Adinkra symbols, making my connections to West Africa, looking at a particular place of Ghana. And because I come from a graphic design background, because that's one of my practices, I like looking at the actual shape, the 2D flat shape, which is quite symbols, and they all got different meanings.
Yeah.
So this is a Sankofa bird, and it means to go back, look back in order to go forward.
Wow.
So it's about looking back at your past, your history, in order to make go forward. Not neglecting it and not just staying there, but just
and not burying it either, not dwelling on it.
But actually using that as a sense of your knowledge and going forward. And so in terms of my own research in that, I like to share that with my students. And in terms of knowledge of history, like global history, not, you know.
And where are your students, Sharon? Where do you teach?
So I teach, well, first of all, I do an after-school club in a primary school, which is Pickhurst Junior Academy. And then I teach on a BA graphic design course at Canberra College of Arts, University Arts as well. And so I also work with, so I work in two departments really within UAL. So in the graphic design department, teaching, as I said, a BA course, and such as Rua, one of the students, and I'll talk a bit more about that as well. And also work in Canberra, Chelsea, Wimbledon, also known as CCW, outreach. So I work on various programs within outreach, and both are really close to my heart in terms of what I do, and I find it really immense in terms of the practice. So there's me linking in between the schools and the transition between primary school, secondary school, further education to higher education. That's why I involved the schools in this project. So the project is encompassed around, as I said, the histories, sharing that history. And interestingly, it happens to fall within October, which is Black History Month. But then it's that kind of platform. But it also goes deeper than that in terms of not just in 1 month, but it's actually part of the curriculum access in terms of learning, in that whole platform of what we're talking about, decolonising the curriculum. But actually, it's about education, everybody's history, world history, global history, really, and getting that sense. So I invited the children in the pottery after school pottery club because they share their stories, they share their narratives, and we embrace all of that. And it's their sort of sense of freedom in terms of how their approach to things, and also then to invite the secondary school that I've worked in particular projects, and these students have previously worked in the summer with some BA graphic design students on a equality, diversity, inclusion program, and so it was a case of keeping those connections, keeping this sort of relationships going between BA graphic design students and also the at the time they were year 9s, now they're year 10s. So they're kind of looking ahead, their aspirations into art and design, and also where they see themselves. So it's kind of like inspiring each other and that kind of mentoring thing. So it's really getting them to do the work as well. So it started off with mine, but then I wanted to see what the students done. So
do a little swap.
There you go. Thank you. So these are the significant pieces. So we spoke about bits about ancestry. We're looking at the fabric of Africa. So we literally looked at African fabric, Ghanaian fabric as well, and tracing some of the prints, tracing from the prints or drawing from the prints, and creating our own. And so this is like, we started off 2D, because again, it's like graphic design, 2D to 3D. So it's slab surface, like net shapes, what they're used to. And then they transferred their designs into the clay, and so there are two different types of clay, so I want to see what the results are. So this is from the primary school using Scarva stoneware as well, and it's just lovely in terms of what the outcome, and also the freedom, and what they did inside and out. And so this is the primary school. So again, from year 3 to 6, which is age from the age of 7 to 11-year-olds that I have.
Okay,
so this is someone in year 5, I believe. So they'd be like 9-year-old.
Yeah, 9-year-old. Yeah, and they're producing work like that.
And then this is from year 10, and it's that taken. So there's similarities in the both, because they're both looking at the same kind of fabrics, but then putting their own impression on it, literally impression into the clay. So this is the student work again in year 10 for their portfolio, which will, and then also it will give them, because they worked directly with students from the BA graphic design course, so they're working together. So whilst they were making theirs, BA students were also making us in the same space, and sharing their own narratives and stories, and also what their history meant, and so on. So it's all about storytelling around, conversation around the making.
Yeah.
So that's what
the
the
results,
producers.
and they're fantastic results.
So then it leads me on to, because the conversations, because it's everything by chance, speaking to Rua and about her work, and also inviting 5 students from the BA course who are really interested in this, and get them to produce their work as well. So I'm going to hand over to you because it's been really great.
Yeah, so I just got into pottery like in the past few months, and then it just so happened that Sharon, who was my tutor, is like also involved in that. So she basically gave me the opportunity to like come and experience the Japanese wood firing, which is like something that I've never experienced before. It was a really, really good experience. Like, I think everyone, it's like really social. Like, you spend so long just like putting wood and fire with people. So like the conversation, everything, it was such a good experience. So.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And it was great to watch you, what you were doing, and to talk about ideas of your work and how you're making things, but also just the fact that it was the doing. So it was getting those gloves on.
Exactly, yeah.
And how did that feel for you, doing it?
Literally so exciting, like it's so much fun.
Yeah.
It really feels like you like open the door and it's fire, and it's just like, you know, it's just not something that I've done before, so it's really exciting. Like, definitely recommend like loads of people to experience this. I don't feel like a lot of people do this, so
yeah,
it is really like.
And I think you mentioned a key thing is about we're all together, and it was community.
Exactly,
it's a great sense of community.
Definitely.
And the fact that there's that dedication, interest of, you know, similar, be staying up all night, working on. It was teamwork.
It was like harmony between everyone, because while people were doing the like wood firing, there'll be other groups that are like cooking and like constantly asking, do you want tea or coffee? And like it was really caring, like bonding experience, I think. Really lovely,
Yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more, you know, and I think I got lucky, you know, having you guys as company the whole time, you know. We had a bit of fun as well as, you know, some serious concentration, and, you know, and I think we all learnt a lot. I mean, I don't think we're going to be firing it as just the 3 of us anytime soon. But it was great, you know. I think we learned so much, and I think to have a project such as what you're doing, Sharon, as part of this, you know, it couldn't really be more important, you know, when we're talking about the equalising area that is the space inside that kiln and the teamwork. So the fact that it's connected to your outreach activities, which, you know, are so far-reaching, and you managed to bring in students, I think you also deserve, you know, some pretty serious credit for managing to do all of that, you know.
Honestly, it's been awesome. I'm really humbly, sincerely grateful, and we've been blessed with really good weather, good company. Everything just fell into place. Yeah. And yes, it's hard work and everything else, and you kind of get overtired to the point of being slightly delirious.
Yeah, just a little,
But around that, I mean, there's lots of things that happen. As I said, everything seems to be quite layered around. Again, I learned a lot of different things from different people, different kind of stories, everybody's localities, and how we've all come together in this one space to share. And that will always stick with me, and I'm humbly grateful for everybody that's been organising it and being a part of that team, being a part of such a great team.
Yeah.
The best team.
Oh no, that's on camera now. We've got to be careful.
Oh yeah. But and it's something that I'll never forget, and I hold on to.
Yeah, I certainly couldn't agree more.
Yeah. And sorry, can I just say?
Go
and to further to share that, continue to share it with the students, and continue to invite more students, because it's a great experience, and just to be out in nature. It's a great experience.
And the students' work will be featured as part of the exhibition as well, so it'll be a fantastic opportunity to have the students come, see their work on display, and and also tell that story about the project. So you know, once we actually have the exhibition up and running, then everything Sharon's working on will be part of the exhibition, and it's really worth coming down to have a read and learn about that as well. You know.
Thank you.
Yeah, so that'd be great. All right, guys, thanks so much for coming to chat to me. Yeah, great, cool. I should crack on a bit.
All right.
And we'll be back in a minute with our last interview before wrapping up. So any final questions, do get them in.
All right,
see you in a minute.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Graham, you good? Last one. Have we got some questions? Yes, ma'am. Okay, you'll bring it in.
Does it taste all right?
We'll just do that now.
You wait until I make a crumble.
So you get my side. And you can join in with the last discussion as well, Melody. We'll have a chat about crafting. Okay, so we'll do last interview, me, Melody, Graham, and then I'll wrap up. Yes, I think you've got his piece ready.
Not even it's the same coat. It's the worst thing to look at. I know. All over the grass. You have to get them out. That one is the one from the kilns. But there's a real variety. I think that's a great plus, having a big variety of people. Yeah.
Should we start?
Huh?
Should we start? Clean out this kiln.
The stoneware, these
Right, let's go back.
Why did I do that? Time.
It is 10 to 3. Right.
I had to go here for
hours.
Are you planning to stay or go back tonight? Are you planning to stay or go back?
I'll see you later.
I see you later.
What are we doing?
I just wanted to clean everything.
There was a really good to put it. I think it's probably clay with iron in it, and I think it's the clay as well.
The colour that's there is we're showing up stays quite dark. I wonder if it's where the clay is from.
No.
Is yours in here?
I only made one thing. It's over. It's over here.
Oh, nice.
It's the only thing I had that was twist.
Yeah, lovely. Looks like a pond.
Where's yours?
That's fantastic. I've got a few bits. Some of them are not so good.
Have you seen your old tree?
This is the back of them is amazing. I think I might have to do.
There was some discussion
That's
about making
There was
sure
something
they
on here.
were turned over so the front got the stuff.
It doesn't really. That's good.
I mean, that's lovely.
Yeah, it's for apples.
So I think
Like a really
that's
nice shiny red apple together.
that has been melded on.
That's okay.
Was something on top of it?
Yeah, probably.
But I think that's
I think
quite
it's
nice.
yeah, but the back of it is fantastic. Yes, there's 4 of them, so that's quite nice. You get a contrast of 4.
I don't have any of this one.
You didn't.
I'm putting them in November.
Oh yes.
And now I can't decide which.
Is this one of Harriet's?
That one got fired again, didn't it?
Oh my gosh, that is so incredible. Yeah.
Wait, I have to find it.
What have you done here? Honestly.
Because actually the way it would have come out, like that one, it's a lovely green slip for salt, which is a rutile and cobalt. And so, but it didn't fire properly. The salt kiln, we didn't get it up to temperature, so I thought I'd just stick it in. And it all kind of separated out, so you can see the cobalt and the rutile on one side, I think. So it's very weird.
It's so amazing.
And I think it's got a red slip on the oak.
Yeah, come back down slightly.
And it's probably
That's okay. I can't remember who asked that question though, but oh, there we go. Oh, okay. So can we start now?
Yeah, I think we can.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So we have some questions here again, and one of the questions is, how does the firing create the shine in the glaze? And I think we'll let Robin answer that one again.
Yeah, sure. And you've got another question.
Oh, and
there.
another one from Michaela is, can we see Claude Assage's piece? Yes, you can.
Yeah,
Here
I'm
it
surprised. Is that from Claude? Bon après-midi, Claude. Look at that. So this is, I think he calls it the portal of the sun. Is that right, Claude? So this we put in the valley in between the two stacks of pots. And it has, Claude, I assure you, come out beautifully. It's really lovely. But it's a very nice illustration of that shine. I don't know if you can see the light reflecting off it there. So to answer that question, the glaze, it's glass. It's a full crystallization. So it shines because it's a fully crystalline product, just as glass is. That's why it shines. And when it's not fully crystalline, you do get the matteness of it. But this, you see, it's shining all over. It's beautiful, isn't it? So the clay body itself has fully recrystallized. This is stoneware, of course, rather than earthenware. So at 1300 degrees, or about cone 12 viscosity, the clay minerals in it fully recrystallize. So so this is non-porous. This is stoneware. These are crystals as they are with stone, and the glass itself, like that on that, you can see that. Look at that beautiful sheen on it. It's really good.
And so the way that the fire, like, how does the fire like make it glossy and shiny?
How does the fire make it glossy?
Yeah.
Well, it's just the heat.
Okay.
So when you heat clay minerals up, they recrystallize.
Okay.
The clay minerals, which initially contain water in the structure of the clay minerals, the water is driven off. The clay minerals themselves become crystalline, and if you heated them further, they would start to bloat and crack and sag and break down. And then if you went even further, they'd become liquid. So we've done clay experiments with earthenware clays, and they just liquefy and disappear.
So basically, the shininess on this, it's due to the clay heating up and then turning into glass. Is that right?
Well, yes. So that's just clay heating up and turning on glass.
Yeah.
But the glaze is really the ash from the firing.
Okay, so it's not actually glaze.
No,
it's just ash.
Well, glaze is like glass. So where you put a glaze, when you deliberately glaze a pot, you're putting something which recrystallizes on it.
Okay.
We haven't glazed these pots deliberately, but the process of firing itself adds a material which is from the ash from the firing. We heat that enough, and it becomes an auto glaze. When these were fired initially in the 1200s, you see glazing on utilitarian pieces, and it was clearly a side effect of the firing. It wasn't a deliberate thing, because the pieces were not art pieces being made in BZ. It was a side effect. It was a nice unintended side effect, and it was the side effect that was then selected for by tea ceremony masters who were looking for vernacular Japanese pieces, particularly in the late 1500s, for their tea ceremony. So it's a side effect, but my word, it's a lovely side effect.
Absolutely.
And look, you can see this. I don't know if you can see that the front and back. You can see this side faced the blast of the flame, and this side was protected from it. So you've got a lovely topography, which again the Japanese would probably call yakashime. It's a very lovely piece, and this illustrates the razor sharp edge of this. You can see very clearly the distinction between front and back. And that's part of the joy of these pieces, whether they're functional teacups or whether they're art pieces like this, is that they're things that your eye can explore.
Thank you.
Does that help?
Yeah, I hope that answers the question. That's a lovely response. And I think now we'll pass on to Callum with, I think, there are a few more questions left, but we can pass that on to Callum now.
Are you guys wrapped up?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I'll get Graham and then that's us done. Cool, thank you, Melody.
We'll definitely be there.
I don't need to say anything about it.
Get in my car. That would be so. Well, I'm going to speak to Stuart and firm up the date.
When you do that, you tell me I want to work with you.
What have you got there? We'll toast to you, Harry, when we get back.
I didn't actually give them Melody for having such a rush this morning.
That's so kind of you. It's been so wonderful. We can't even say how wonderful it's been.
And to Jen, on top, the icing on the cake, to actually get nice pots.
Super pots.
Because it would have been great, even actually the pots, but it's really so disappointing after if you open the kiln and it's just all.
Well, they have to be until 6.
I'm sure.
I mean, there is nothing, is there? There's almost nothing. Yeah, that's exactly. Because I was just saying that often you take out an Anagama, everything just looks brown.
What's happened here?
Okay, if I'm having a going back in,
I think that might be like that one. That's what you say. Right, I think so.
So here we are back. I appreciate we've overrun over the scheduled time, so thanks to everyone who stayed with us to the very end. We will be putting a slightly abridged version of this on YouTube afterwards for those of you who couldn't, join or couldn't stay. So keep an eye out for that and share it with people who you think might be interested. But before we wrap up, I would love to speak to Graham to tell us a little bit about your involvement with the project. So do you want to start just by introducing yourself?
Yeah, my name's Graham Hughes. I'm an artist and a printmaker. I teach printmaking at the Ruskin School of Art, part of Oxford University. And so I got involved with the project through chatting with Robin about how we could link up kind of the different sites of craft practice from the Ruskin School, which is a kind of contemporary fine art undergraduate and postgraduate course, and then this site of practice within the university of working with ceramics and this traditional technique.
Yeah.
And so that would be a pathway. So my involvement in the project, Robin and you guys kindly invited me to be part of it as a kind of pathway for our students to kind of follow in that route and maybe use this process as part of their practice.
Yeah, and a lot of the students came on the Thursday, didn't they, and actually saw the firing happening, and it's a great experience to have if you've just joined the school and they're straight in the field, seeing it going on and, connecting the dots between fine art and craft. I think you're really operating as that bridge, aren't you?
We try, quite a few first years and third years came up, and it was really interesting, I think, for them to see a different aspect of making, and then maybe how they could interweave kind of working with clay and this site within their practice of fine art. So we're really, as you were saying, we're really trying to join up the dots effectively between fine art and the discussion between anthropology and archaeology, which this does very well.
Yeah, it's existing on that border, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think those interdisciplinary discussions are really important, and kind of cross collaborative making. Really important.
And what did you produce? Because I think these.
So I'm really pleased with this. So this is going to be part of a sculpture. So I'm using this as kind of like an experimental process.
Yeah.
I've been working with the Natural History Museum in Oxford, and so they excavated 2 plane trees to make way for the development of a new science college.
Right.
So they wanted an artist to kind of work with the trees, so they didn't go to waste effectively. So I've been working on making some sculptural pieces, but also some engraving blocks, so wood engraving blocks.
Yeah.
And then also part of this project during the firing, I put in a block. It's kind of like a bit of a ritualistic offering, and part of my heritage, kind of my ancestors were brick makers, so I'm kind of doing some work that's to do with crosses to do with my craft heritage, and then how that then translates through this project. So hopefully symbolically some of the ash would have ended up onto some of the ceramics as well. So that would be part of the feature sculpture piece as well. So
and I think that was a beautiful moment when we sort of gathered around the kiln and we put the piece in. I think you could feel the symbolism of the action, and the fact that it traces all the way back to the Natural History Museum as well. It's just such an interesting way to have an artistic angle on that wood that otherwise would have gone to waste, as you say.
Oh, thanks. No, it was quite a kind of, I think it was late at night, so it was quite a kind of emotional moment.
We'd all been firing for how many hours.
What is this?
Suddenly,
it's been such a great process to go through. I think like collective kind of effort, everyone coming together, discussions that have come out of it, friendships that have come out of it have been really special. So it's,
couldn't agree more.
Yeah, it's kind of like a very unique project. So
yeah, couldn't agree more. Great. Well, I think we better wrap up at some point. So all's left to say from the Embassy of Japan, thank you to the Oxford Research Centre in the Humanities, who have been putting this on alongside us as part of their Japan season, which do check out the Torch website. There's lots of other interesting Japan-related events happening, and also the Japan UK Season of Culture is still going to the end of this year. So there's an awful lot of exciting Japanese-related events, cultural events and otherwise, all across the country. So that's very much worth checking out. And last but not least, to Dr. Robin Wilson and the whole team at the Oxford University Kilns. It was sort of those three organisations who got the project rolling. But getting it rolling is only one side. The rest is Graham, the rest is everyone who helped. A few people I've spoken to today, but that was not everyone. It's been a huge team, it's been good fun, and it really couldn't have happened without them. So I think we've all been thrilled. And the exhibition is due to begin in the middle of December. So do stop by the Embassy of Japan if you're around, and come and see the pots in real life, because you know how they look in real life is actually very different from how it looks when we're holding it up to the camera. This really is just a first glimpse. So yes, look after yourselves, and hope to see you in the winter time. Thank you for joining today. Bye-bye.